Welcome everybody at the Dana L. Wiley Gallery here at Front Street, and I'm with artist Karen Fisher, whose show The Darker Sooner is running through May 16th. Karen, great to be with you this afternoon.
Thanks.
Question for you, these are the kinds of things everyone wants to know. When did you start making art?
Well, I started making art full-time in the year 2012 when I left my full-time teaching career, my 15-year teaching career. I was a high school English teacher, and 23 years ago now, I grew up in the Dayton area, but about 23 years ago, I left Ohio and moved to Colorado with my family. And when we first moved, I became a student at the Art Students League in Denver and took classes from 1998 till the present, actually, because I still live in both Colorado and Ohio. I left teaching in 2012 because my son, who is in Ohio, my son and daughter-in-law had my first grandchild. So both Gil and I wanted to be a part of our grandkids' lives, so we were both fortunate enough to be able to work in two places. Although I did have to leave teaching, since I had been painting and taking these classes and honing my skills and showing art in little shows and juried shows, I decided to just start a studio practice Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and create a body of work. And I was able to present my portfolio to a gallery in California, and that's basically how it started in terms of the momentum. The opportunities that I've been given were all based on just my constant work in the studio. Like I said, just constantly making work. And I think
So looking back on it, kind of throwing caution to the wind a little bit, maybe that's not the typical story. Looking back 8 or 9 years later, are you where you thought you were going to be when you said,
No,
I'm
not
quitting
at
my
all.
teaching job and I'm opening the studio and getting to work?
I started teaching late in life. I stayed home with my two boys until in my mid-30s, and then I got an education degree at Wright State University and taught in the Vandalia Butler School system for a few years before moving to Colorado. And then I received my master's in humanities and teaching at Colorado College in Colorado Springs. And I was able to, the entire time I taught English, I taught language learners, I taught reluctant high school students, and I found ways to incorporate art into my lessons. I wanted to be able to reach students who especially had a hard time with the English language or reading in particular. So any text that I put it forth in front of the students, I would always attach some art piece with it. And so I was able to incorporate art and the humanities within my teaching. So I feel like I've always been, even in my teaching career, I've been able to, use art as another visual language to make work that's difficult more accessible.
And what a wonderful opportunity for your students to have the art integrated in their humanities work. So what a great story. Not necessarily typical, although I'm not sure how many artists have a typical story. But
when I was teaching like modernism or The Great Gatsby, we would listen to jazz music and paint with watercolors, and they just had to paint based on the sounds that they heard. And when I was teaching Of Mice and Men to language learners, I would have them create collages out of National Geographic magazines to represent Lenny or George, and the same with the Odyssey. Teaching Homer's The Odyssey to language learners, I had them create graphic novels to understand the story, and I can just go on and on with those kinds of experiments or experiences, and I found that the kids really loved that type of work, and they were able to understand the literature, which is really the bottom line for an English teacher and the curriculum.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that story. That's great.